Hi, I'm Smriti Parshira, and in this video, my co author Prateek Jha and I will walk you through a recent paper that we've released with Carnegie India on understanding India's strategic options on cross border data access. Now, the relevance of this topic stems from the growing importance of electronic evidence in most criminal investigations. This is accompanied by the dual challenge that, on one hand, state agencies already have way too much power and ability to access the personal information of citizens, and on the other hand, there are genuine jurisdictional challenges that sometimes limit data access even in genuine cases. Let's examine this with an example. Suppose person X is being investigated for a drug trafficking offense in India. For simplicity, let's also assume that there is no cross border element to this crime except that he uses services like Gmail and Twitter for corresponding with his clients. When the investigation agencies in India try to approach these companies for data, they might actually be interested in a range of different kinds of information. So they may be interested in the basic subscriber information and the account information of this person. They may be keen to get metadata like what are the timestamps when communications took place, who was the sender and who was the receiver, or they may even be interested in the actual content of the communications. Now, of course, the interest of the authorities does not mean all of these requests are fair and legitimate and should be honored. But currently, provisions like Section 91 of the Criminal Procedure Code actually give the authorities very broad powers to call for any document or thing that they believe is relevant to an investigation. In the paper, we point out why this is problematic and how it actually goes against the basic requirements of the right to privacy as have been laid down by the Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy case. This includes requirements of proportionality and necessary procedural safeguards while processing of personal data is done by state agencies. Yet the reality of how things work on the internet is that most of the data is stored in dispersed locations, and access to this data is shaped not just by domestic laws and demands by local agencies, but also the laws governing the company or the place where the data is being stored. Now, one good example of this is the US Stored Communications Act, which basically prohibits US based service providers from sharing any content related data with third parties, except where this is done in accordance with that law. So, when Indian authorities want this sort of content information, they will have to go through formal routes such as mutual legal assistance treaties or court approved letters rogatory processes. Currently, India is party to 42 bilateral agreements and 6 international conventions on mutual assistance. But research has shown that these instruments are not really being able to cope with the expected volume or the timelines of data requests. For instance, as per some estimates, US authorities take an average of about 10 months to process a single MLAT request. But this is, of course, only one side of the problem. Our interviews with stakeholders also reveal that the delays are further compounded by incomplete or poorly drafted requests being sent by domestic agencies. So, from all of these perspectives, we learn that there is a fair degree of consensus about the need for reforms in cross border data access, but less so on what these reforms should be.
As Smriti mentioned, the current cross-border data access mechanisms were perhaps never intended to be used in the internet age that we live in today. Recognizing this, countries have explored alternatives to the MLAT and LR process. Today, we see a number of countries looking at direct data access mechanisms. These are agreements that empower law enforcement agencies in one country to make requests directly to service providers in other countries. This removes the need to go through the latter's court system or law enforcement agencies. Now, the idea here is to make the data access process A, much faster than how things have been happening presently, and B, to base the process on the laws of the country making the request. This is projected to reduce the costs and time associated with training and understanding the laws and procedures of other countries. However, it is exactly this that makes direct data access agreements worrying from a privacy perspective. It essentially means that the service providers receiving the request become the last line of privacy protection. In our paper, we have carefully studied three key direct data access instruments. These are first, executive agreements under the US Cloud Act, second, the draft second additional protocol under the Budapest Convention, and third, the EU's draft e-evidence proposal. Among these, the only instrument to come into force so far are the agreements under the Cloud Act, specifically the executive agreement between the US and the UK. Now, while these instruments all try to solve the same problem, there are several differences within the three on matters such as the scope of the instruments, the types of data that can be asked for, the crimes that are covered under it, the rights of individuals and contracting parties, and procedural safeguards. For example, all three instruments allow for different types of data to be requested. The executive agreement between the US and the UK has the broadest scope. It includes both content and non-content data and also allows for live interception of communications. The Budapest Convention only allows for subscriber data to be collected, and the e-evidence proposal, while allowing for content and non-content data, it specifically excludes the live interception of communications. Another example of a difference between these mechanisms is on the requirement of notifying an individual about a request for their data. As you can see, both the US UK agreement and the Budapest Convention do not expressly contain such a requirement. However, the e evidence proposal allows for a delay in issuing the notice, but mandates that the individual be notified after such a delay. Now, while these three instruments have their shortcomings, we cannot ignore the global mood shift towards such agreements. This study has informed our opinion on how India should approach the issue of direct data access. In our paper, Smriti and I argue that solving the data access puzzle will require intervention at multiple levels. We first recommend that India amend its domestic legal regime for data access and ensure that the process abides by the Supreme Court's guidelines in the Puttaswamy judgment. These reforms are a prerequisite for any international discussions on cross-border data access. Next, we recommend the introduction of certain mechanisms to ensure greater efficiency and accountability in the present systems for domestic data access. These include SOPs and guidelines on making requests from service providers, specifications about the form and content of these requests, streamlined mechanisms for transmission, authentication, and completion of requests. It also includes capacity building for police personnel, judicial officers, and interstate and interagency coordination. Finally, on the matter of direct data access agreements, we recommend that India should set up a multi-stakeholder task force to draft a model data access agreement. This would allow India to signal its starting position on any future negotiations on the matter. Now, this task force should include members from different departments of the government, private sector, civil society, and international law experts. Our paper also provides some suggestions on the contents of the model agreement, such as its scope, the requirement for prior approval by a judge or independent authority, mandatory requirements of notice to affected individual, and the need for appropriate standards of data protection. Initiatives and reforms on these three fronts can be pursued simultaneously with the overarching goal of improving cross-border data access in a manner that enhances the protection of privacy and other human rights. Our working paper is available on the Carnegie India website, and we hope that you have an opportunity to read the paper and send us your comments. Thank you.